Doorwarz, the 11th edition, and here comes your first car rolling under the bridge, and fittingly, it is the defending Doorwarz winner over there in the Lord Co Auto Parts lane. So Jordan Brandon out of Sherwood Park, Alberta, in his 2000 Chevy Camaro. Getting backed up from the burnout. Jordan putting in a 447 last night in the test and tune session. And will no doubt be a factor this weekend in Outlaw 275 competition as he gets backed up. And again, Jordan, really his first full season in the division was last year and managed to take out that Doorwarz win. The turbocharged Camaro with the LS power plant underneath of the hood getting brought into the staging beams here at Mission Raceway Park in the first car down the racetrack. Jordan Brandon getting ready to go. Again, one of those feature cars in the T-shirt with Justin Bond and Rick McLeod building up the boost. Brandon got about 60 feet. Waltzed right up into tire smoke and pedals his way to a 514 with an 8 at 158 miles an hour. So still able to get some big speed at the top end with a quick pedal job there for Brandon. As we'll get a look at the instant replay there, you can see Jordan right before the 330-foot mark having to pedal it, get out of it, and then get back in it, still managing to salvage the run with that 514 with an 8. Coming up next, Tyler Bodke out of Rochester, Washington. Lined up and ready to go on the Lord Co Auto Parts side of the racetrack. TCS lane, Jason Gagnon, the runner out of Kelowna in that 1970 Nova with the twin turbos. So once again, last call for Limited Street and Outlaw 275. Last call for Limited Street and Outlaw 275. Make a call for Outlaw Street to start making their way to the staging lanes. So Jason Gagnon again running that big speed last night. Almost 170 miles an hour in the 1970 Nova. And over there in the far side of the racetrack, Tyler Bodke, the racer out of Washington State, the Bodke-built racing Mustang up against Jason Gagnon, the Gen 3 Speed JS Power Sports Precision Concepts sponsored Chevy Nova, as Bodke coming back over the border from Washington State. Another one of our Washington competitors. Good to see him back over as Jason Gagnon getting ready to trip on that bottom beam. You can hear both drivers building up the boost on their respective sides of the racetrack. Gagnon right up into tire smoke, pedals it. Bodke gets down the racetrack to a 5 flat with an 8, 5008 at 145 miles an hour. So Tyler Bodke right now at the top of the qualifying order as Gagnon pedals his way to a 634 with a 157 miles an hour, encountering problems on his run. Looking to rebound coming up in the late night session here with, I believe, 2 more qualifying hits for the Outlaw 275 competitors coming up later on in the evening. Brought to us by MDA Fabrication as a pair of Mustangs in the water box next. So it's Chris Gould, Tower Side, TCS lane, and his 2000 Mustang, sponsored by CT Automotive, and Tyler Levy out of Maple Ridge, his 1986 Ford Mustang with a little 302 under the hood with turbocharger thrown on it for good measures. Both drivers getting backed up from their respective burnouts. Chris Gould, former Outlaw 10-5 racer, coming from the province of Alberta, Spruce Grove. Making the transition in the last few years to running in Outlaw 275 competition up against Tyler Levy, who since the pandemic hasn't done a whole lot of racing, but is back behind the wheel of his 1986 Ford Mustang, the Fox Body, lined up and ready to go. Both cars strong launch as Gould takes it all the way to the top end. We got ourselves a new #1 qualifier. Chris Gould, 458 with a 160 miles an hour for Chris Gould. Tyler Levy, strong run as well. 5003 goes into the #2 spot for the racer out of Maple Ridge. All right, next pair. We have Parm Jawanda, tower side of the racetrack. Parm, it is 1991 Ford Mustang against the wagon over there, far side of the racetrack. Attention to the pits, attention to the pits. We need all real street competitors. Real street competitors. We need you guys in lanes 2 and 3. Real street, lanes 2 and 3. We've also called Outlaw Street to the lanes as well. So Parm Jawanda building up the boost and getting ready. Rick McLeod bringing out the backup car, the wagon, to try and get some points. The Dart obviously having some problems. 531 at 150 miles an hour for Parm Jawanda, the racer out of Surrey. And the Jawanda Motorsports machine, as you get a look at that up on the big screen for the instant replay. So Parm Jawanda, solid run with that 531. As rolling underneath Lordco Auto Parts Bridge, you can see over there in the Lordco Auto Parts lane, that is Steve Skokin behind the wheel of his Pro-Charged Mustang. Steve, a former Doorwarz winner for the 3rd edition of Doorwarz in that Pro-Charged machine. And then over here in the TCS side of the racetrack, 1981 Chevy Malibu, that is Mike Hawkins out of Chilliwack. So Hawkins, again, the TCS side of the racetrack, in a Chevy Malibu that's seen a lot of competition here at Mission Raceway Park. It's been converted over to Outlaw 275 competition, the nitrous-assisted machine, up against Steve Skokin in that Mustang. As we mentioned, former Doorwarz winner in 2021, the last time Steve was here. Kind of split the prize money there with Justin Gallant, unfortunately unable to run the final in 2021 as things ran a little bit late on that particular race night. So Steve and Justin electing to split the prize purse as Mike Hawkins purchased the nitrous system on the Chevy Malibu, getting ready to be guided into the staging beam. Steve Skokin already waiting on the procedure over there going on before Mike Hawkins is ready to roll up. So again, they got courtesy staging where both drivers wait for the other to be ready before they actually enter into the staging beam. So it looks like Steve Skokin pulling in, tripping on that top bulb as Mike Hawkins will get ready to bring the Malibu in as well to get that top bulb. So far into the 450s, we have gone with Chris Gould sitting at the top. Hawkins straight up into tire shake, had to get off of it. Skokin gets down to the top end with a 499 with a 1. 499 with a 1, second quick so far for Steve Skokin in the Mustang. The Lordco Auto Parts side of the racetrack, Mike Hawkins having to shut it off with a 593 with a 4 at 106 miles an hour for the Malibu from Chilliwack in the TCS side of the racetrack. Attention in the pits, final call for Outlaw Street to make their way to the staging lanes. Outlaw Street, this is your final call to the lanes. So here we go with Dan Rodrigue, tower side, the Boo, the 1981 Chevy Malibu, your defending West Coast Outlaw 275 champion for the folks at MDA Fabrication. And Tony Souza over in the Lordco Auto Parts lane. Souza out of Surrey. The Violent Performance, SDK Performance, Langley West Can Auto sponsored 1988 Ford Mustang. And Dan Rodrigue with the big block Chevy with a whole lot of nitrous assistance with a nice vinyl top on the 81 Chevy Malibu. As we mentioned, Dan getting the championship last year in this division. He is also the 2022 Smoke, Fire, and Thunder Outlaw 275 winner here at Mission Raceway Park. Racing always a family affair with the Rodrigue family. The Kent Specialty Automotive Milron truck body. Gray Metalworks machine getting backed up from the burnout. Over on the far side of the racetrack, Tony in the Mustang. Again, the Violent Performance machine. Tony getting to make a few test hits last night, as did Dan Rodrigue. And Dan, a machine that's definitely capable of reaching up and trying to take that #1 spot. As you can see, the crew member out there on the radio talking to Dan, making sure everything's good to go. One final purge of the nitrous system before he is guided into the beams. The TCS side of the racetrack. So here we go, Dan Rodrigue and Tony Souza. Rodrigue, quick pedal job, and still going to try and salvage that run. 5:34 with a 3 at 155 miles an hour. Tony Souza in the Mustang runs it through to a 5:68 with an 123 miles an hour. So both cars getting down the racetrack. Rodrigue, though, having to pedal it big time, salvaging a qualifying run there for the Malibu as we continue to march through. Well, you can hear that we are ready to go for Outlaw 275 qualifying, and the first pair fired up and heading underneath of the bridge. So Mike Hawkins in the TCS side of the racetrack. Hawkins coming into round 2 qualifying after an aborted run with a 593 with a 4. And session number 1 over in the Lordco Auto Parts side of the racetrack. It is Jason Gagnon out of Kelowna, the Gen 3 Speed JS Power Sports Precision Concept Chevy Nova, 1970 Nova for Gagnon. If this thing hooks up, look for some big top-end speed out of the twin turbocharged machine. Gagnon currently sitting in the number 10 spot with a 634 with a 3, having to pedal his way out of the first session. So nitrous, the power adder of choice for Hawkins out of Chilliwack, and Jason Gagnon again, the twin turbocharged Nova, looking to move way up the qualifying order. So Gagnon already pre-staged, is waiting on Hawkins to get guided into the beams. Hawkins, again, that car no stranger to competition here at Mission Raceway Park. One last purge of the nitrous system before he flickers on that top bulb. Gagnon still waiting over there in the Lordco Auto Parts lane. That beautifully prepared Nova. Hawkins leaving a day and a half early, but it doesn't matter in qualifying, as a 4:53 for Jason Gagnon at 169 miles an hour. So Jason will go from the number 10 spot all the way up to the number 1 position in the Nova. So Jason Gagnon now your new number 1 qualifier. Mike Hawkins in the Malibu, 481 with a 152 miles an hour, will go up to the 3rd spot Attention to the pits, Outlaw Street. We need you to the lanes, Outlaw Street to the lanes, and last call, absolute last call for Outlaw 275 and Limited Street competitors. So Dan Rodrigue here in the TCS side of the racetrack, Tower side, the Boo 1981 Malibu, urging the nitrous system. And again, as we like to mention, Dan runs a lot of nitrous to help out that big block Chevy underneath the hood of the Ken Specialty Automotive Milron truck body. The Gray Metalworks machine. Rodrigue, your defending Outlaw 275 champion with the West Coast Outlaws, currently sitting in the number 9 position, getting knocked down 2 spots. Rodrigue carrying the front wheels, just touches him down at the 330-foot mark. How about a 454 with a 9? So Rodrigue into the number 2 position in the Boo. And getting a look at the instant replay, you can see him carrying the front end, yarding out the front end as the Rocket Coatings finish line cam capturing Rodrigue going across the finish stripe and putting in that 454 as Tyler Levy, who came in as the number 3 qualifier, but has since been tumbled down a few spots. For the racer out of Maple Ridge up against Rick McLeod, and Rick usually racing his Dodge Dart, unfortunately wounding the Dart and having to break out the backup wagon. So McLeod out here just running to try and get some points for the West Coast Outlaw Series for the overall points championship, getting those qualifying points and hopefully round point when it comes to eliminations. And Tyler Levy getting ready to bump in the boosted Mustang in the TCS side. So McLeod rolls through the beams, won't get a time, and Levy pretty much straight after he got in the throttle, spins up the tires and coasts his way to a 10.63. So Levy will reside with that 5.003 from round number 1 of qualifying is his best run, heading into round 3 of qualifying. And up next, your next pair, Parm Jawanda over there in the Lord Auto Parts lane. I believe Matt Robert, who we saw earlier in Outlaw Street competition. Matt has been getting some serious airtime in the Camaro out of Airdrie, Alberta. And Parm Jawanda back for run number 2. Jawanda coming in with a 5.31 with an 8 at 150 miles an hour after session number 1. And I think can go well quicker than that. The Night Shift Mustang for Jawanda Motorsports. Jawanda's strong launch. We'll see what the Fox body can do as Matt Roberts' problems off the line. And Jawanda improving with a 484 with an 8 at 159 miles an hour. So Matt Robert again having some problems leaving the line of the Camaro and the TCS side of the racetrack. But Parm Jawanda, big time improvement for Parm. 484 with an 8. So Jordan Brandon, your defending Doorwarz winner in the 2000 Chevy Camaro with the LS turbocharged LS power plant, getting ready to back up from the burnout. So Brandon backing up from the burnout in that Camaro, and Jordan running a 5:14 with an 8. Big mile an hour, 158 miles an hour, but Jordan having to pedal it on his run in the Lordco Auto Parts lane in his first qualifying attempt of the Doorwarz weekend. So Brandon being brought into the beams, trying to get a run that this car is capable of on the board. Looking promising so far. Jordan Brandon, 4:41 with a 1 at 171 miles an hour. And you have obviously got yourselves a new #1 qualifier by over a 10th at the top. Jordan Brandon with top speed of the meet in Outlaw 275 as well at 171 miles an hour to the 8th mile. Your next pair, Steve Skokin, TCS side of the racetrack, Chris Gould. So Chris Gould backing up from the burnout, and again, Chris with his 4:58 with a 2. Came in as the #1 qualifier, has since been knocked down a few spots. Steve Skokin, former Doorwarz winner, the TCS side of the racetrack. Tension in the pits, tension in the pits. Real Street, we need you guys to lanes 1 and 2. So again, Jerry's OK Tire, Real Street, we need you guys to lanes 1 and 2. So again, Steve Skokin, TCS side up against Chris Gould over there. Turbocharger versus Procharger. Skokin trying to step up the program after a 499, blows the tires off in the hit, and Chris Gould runs it through to a 454 with a 7, improving on round #1 of qualifying for Gould. As Steve Skokin again blowing the tires off at the hit with that 554 with a 9 for the racer out of Surrey. So, Tyler Bodke from Rochester, Washington, his 1992 Ford Mustang, the Bodke-built racing machine. Backing up from the burnout. See Nick Duda behind Tyler's machine. So Jordan Brandon at the top with that 441 solid run from Jordan Brandon. Unfortunately, last night, seeing some carnage in the test session. Kurt Thompson in his 68 Camaro, the runner-up last year at Doorwarz, unfortunately wounding the motor. And Justin Glant punching a hole in the side of the block, unfortunately, in his machine, the Street Cars Super Nationals winner from last year. As Tyler Bodke getting brought into the beams. Tyler coming into the session. Best run from session #1, 5:008. Currently, 5 thousandths of a second behind Tyler Levy in the Battle of the Tylers. As Tyler's car, when he went to spool it up and bump it into that stage beam, unfortunately, sounds like it's died on him. You can see some smoke coming out from underneath the hood of Bodke's machine. So the crew seeing if they can get that car fired up. So Bodke once again with the driver's side door open, so some problems in the starting line for Tyler Bodke. Again, the racer coming from Rochester, Washington, up here to run at Doorwarz, MDA Fabrication Outlaw 275. And unfortunately, looks like they're going to have to push that car off of the starting line. So very tough break for what looks to be final car in Outlaw 275 qualifying as we get ready to head into Limited Street for Gulf and Fraser Financial. So Tyler Bodke not getting in a qualifying run. Jordan Brandon will come out of the session as your new #1 qualifier in the Chevy Camaro with a 441 at over 170 miles an hour, putting him at the top. As we
Swagger down the street with your red lips and funky beat. You better hold your head up to the sky. I'm gonna roll with you till the day I die. Ready to ride.
quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. What keeps you up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. Oh, yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. You got me like, oh, yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. Hey, it's too late to try to go contain it. A generation fueled by creation. We live lives on a small screen nation. We control the airwaves, no negotiation. I refuse to think we need saving. Something good will come from creation. And when we think that the world is too anxious, we'll adapt, evolve, survive, and save it. What keeps you up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. What keeps you up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough.
See the crews milling about in the starting line, just checking the traction down there, checking out the track conditions ahead of this final qualifying session for Outlaw 275, and looks like we got our first pair rolling into the water box. So getting ready. First pair, Outlaw 275 for MDA Fabrication. Jordan Brandon in that gray 2000 Chevy Camaro over in the Lordco Auto Parts side of the racetrack. And Jordan coming into this session as the #1 qualifier with a 441 over 170 miles an hour. That was set in the cool conditions of the evening session last night here at Mission Raceway Park in the second round of qualifying. So Jordan Brandon going up against Tyler Bodke in that Mustang from Washington State. And Tyler has not had the greatest couple of runs so far for his Doorwarz weekend. Has been down in the 4-second bracket, but tricky track conditions now with the heat for these very small tire cars trying to put down a whole lot of horsepower. Jordan Brandon immediately up into smoke at the hit, and Tyler Bodke runs it through to a 488 with an 8 at 153 miles an hour. So considering the conditions, solid run there for Tyler to get from A to B for the Mustang out of Rochester, Washington. And Jordan Brandon, you can see that car pretty much drive up into tire smoke just after the Christmas tree as really the power is starting to come in. Your next pair getting ready. It's Steve Skokin versus Chris Gould. Skokin, the Pro-Charge Fox-bodied Mustang over here in the TCS side of the racetrack, going into the 4-second zone with a 470 charge last night. Up against the #2 qualifier at the moment, Chris Gould, with a 445 from that 2000 Ford Mustang for the folks at CT Automotive out of Spruce Grove, Alberta. And Chris, we mentioned a few times, former Outlaw 10.5 competitor that had raced here at Doorwarz previously, making the step in the last few years, running the Outlaw 275 with those very small drag radials, and again, trying to put a whole lot of horsepower to those back tires. We saw Tyler Bodke get the job done, going from A to B with that 488 to kick things off. Jawanda driving up into tire smoke, 494 at 142 miles an hour for Tyler Levy out of Maple Ridge. So another car getting A to B, also on the TCS side of the racetrack, is Jawanda driving up into tire smoke and pedaling his way to a 564 with a 945 miles an hour. So getting ready for our next pair, Mike Hawkins. Up with Jason Gagnon in the Nova for Gen 3 Speed, JS Power Sports, and Precision Concept out of Kelowna. So Jason Gagnon making big power with that twin turbocharged setup. Gonna have to try and back it down here to get down the racetrack in the heat of the day. Mike Hawkins out of Chilliwack, the 1981 Chevy Malibu, the nitrous-assisted machine. So here we go with Hawkins. Attention the pits, attention the pits. Pro Street and Outlaw Street. We need you guys to lanes 2 and 3. Pro Street and Outlaw Street, lanes 2 and 3. And attention the pits, Real Street. We need you guys in lanes 4 and 5. Real Street, lanes 4 and 5. So Mike Hawkins getting guided into the beams. Again, that 1981 Chevy Malibu. It's been in the 480 zone throughout the weekend up against Jason Gagnon, coming in as the number 3 qualifier. Wheels up a pair. Gagnon gets through to a 457 with a 3. Great run there for Gagnon over there in the Lordco Auto Parts lane. 169 miles an hour, big speed for the turbo car. 474 with a 953 miles an hour. Hawkins also getting from A to B over there in the TCS racetrack. Saw the replay up there on the big screen, the Lordco Auto Parts live stream. So Dan Rodrigue, now on the TCS side of the racetrack. Rodrigue in the 81 Chevy Malibu known as the Boo. The big block Chevy nitrous combo for Rodrigue. Lined up and ready to go over there, the Radial Flyer. That venerable Nova is just taking a quick look at the racetrack at the moment over in the TCS side of things. It's like potentially a piece of debris or something down there that's getting retrieved, as that'll get picked up and ready to go. So J.R. Lazick back behind the wheel, the Radial Flyer, and JR also running, of course, with the West Coast Pro Modifieds. And in this car, managed to get the win at Doorwarz back in 2018. So, again, just waiting on that quick track check. And see Dan Rodrigue. Kent Specialty Automotive, Milron Truck Bodies, and Gray Metalworks. Bring us your defending Outlaw 275 champion here at Mission Raceway Park with the West Coast Outlaws. And the Radial Flyer with J.R. Lazick back behind the wheel. Jay Severson racing that car at Doorwarz last year. So Dan Rodrigue and J.R. Lazic getting ready as they will back it up from the burnouts. The turbocharged combo for the radial flyer of Lazic and Rodrigue, the nitrous machine. So looks like it'll be the last pair. Round number 4 of qualifying here in Outlaw 275. As purging the nitrous is Dan Rodrigue and JR trying to get a representative run for the Nova over there on the far side of the racetrack. This will head into Gulf and Fraser limited street action. First, we'll see what Dan Rodrigue and J.R. Lazic can do in the heat of the day. Saw that 450 from Jason Gagnon there in the Nova over in the Lordco Auto Parts side of the racetrack. And we'll see what both of them can do is building up the boost is J.R. Lazic. So backing them out of the beams as they'll line them up and try it once more. You can hear Lazic building up the boost again in that turbo car and trying to hold back that car as it's pretty difficult to stage the turbo cars. You have to really grab a handful of brake and kind of bump that thing in. And in qualifying, you want to just barely trip that bottom bulb and stage as shallow as possible, because if you go in too deep, it starts to rob you ET-wise. It'll be helpful in eliminations, but not in qualifying. Lazic waiting to build a boost. Pedal job for Rodrigue. Gets to the top end with a 5.32.1 at 153 miles an hour for Daniel Rodrigue, and J.R. Lazic a 5.26 with a 147 miles an hour as J.R. waiting to build up the boost till that Nova was good and ready and makes an A to B pass here. Get some data for later on in the day for J.R. Lazic and Daniel Rodrigue going down the racetrack with that 5.32 with a 1. So Chris Gould rolling into the water box in the Mustang over there in the far side of the racetrack, the Lordco Auto Parts lane, coming in as your number 2 qualifier. So here we go with Chris Gould in the Mustang over there. Again, the number 2 qualifier up against Camaro over there in the TCS side of the racetrack. So here we go as Gould building up the boost, and there you can see the Camaro just breaking the beams in case Chris had a miscue, and Chris sitting and making sure that that did not happen. 446 at the top end. So Chris Gould moving on to the next round of Outlaw 275 competition here in round number 1.
Attention in the pits, attention in the pits. Outlaw Street and Real Street, you are on standby. Outlaw Street and Real Street, you're on standby, please.
All right, here we go with Jordan Brandon. I would say the second pair, but Jordan as the number 1 qualifier will get a bye run into the next round with the odd qualified field. here at Doorwarz. 13 cars qualifying. So Jordan Brandon will get ready to bring up the Camaro and try and make it all the way down the Lordco Auto Parts lane. So your defending Doorwarz winner getting guided into the staging beams, and we will see what Jordan can do. Went right up into tire smoke on his only qualifying pass that the Outlaw 275 guys got earlier today. Here goes Jordan. Makes it past the shake point. Jordan Brandon, 446 again. 446 with a 7. We saw Chris Gould go a 446 with a 0 on the last pair, and Jordan Brandon almost matching him down to the 1,000th of a second, 7,000ths of a second shy of going completely the same as Chris Gould's Mustang out of Spruce Grove, Alberta. So Jordan Brandon out of Sherwood Park. Moving on into round number 2 with that bye run, but not taking it easy, as Steve Skokin will go up against Tyler Bodke. Skokin in the Lordco Auto Parts side of the race, rather the TCS side of the racetrack, and Tyler Bodke over there in the Lordco Auto Parts lane. So the winner of this pairing will have to face Jordan Brandon in round number 2 of competition. Skokin, again, a former Doorwarz winner, coming into this round is the number 7 qualifier up against Tyler Bodke, the number 8 qualifier. The Bodke built racing Mustang out of Rochester, Washington, up against Surrey's Steve Skokin. So Skokin with the Mustang, got the Pro Charger on it. We'll see who moves on. Again, Skokin missing out on Doorwarz last year, split the final round with Justin Gallant back in 2021. And Tyler Bodke trying to take out the veteran Outlaw 275 competitor in Steve Skokin. Skokin, slight advantage on the tree, but unfortunately having to click it off early, and Tyler Bodke, 459 with 449 miles an hour, gets the win. Skokin is going to have to pack her up, and that's going to be the end of his weekend for Steve Skokin. You can see he was pretty even on the starting line, then a little wisp of smoke as Skokin shutting it off as he coasts through the traps. You got to look at the Rocket Coatings finish line cam down there. It's Tyler Bodke, again, out of Rochester, Washington, moving on to round at number 2, and he will have to face Jordan Brandon. Bodke running a 459 with 449 miles an hour, and Brandon a 446 with a 770 miles an hour. So bit of an advantage in the ET department for Brandon, but Bodke will try and close that up. And Outlaw 275, a very unpredictable class at that. So getting ready to move on here with the next pair. That is Tyler Levy up against Parj Jawanda. Levy over here in the TCS side of the racetrack up against Parj Jawanda over the Lordco Auto Parts lane out of Surrey. Levy from Maple Ridge. Tyler Levy with reaction time advantage, but Parj Jawanda drives around him at the top end. 478 with a 1, 160 miles an hour to a 492 with a 1 at 142 miles an hour. An 011 light for Tyler Levy, an 097 reaction time for Parj Jawanda, and there is the margin of victory just by a nose for Parj Jawanda at the finish line, able to drive around Tyler Levy at the top end and move on in to round number 2. So here we go. Next pair is in the water box. J.R. Lazic up against Mike Hawkins. Lazic from Rutland, a suburb of Kelowna, and Mike Hawkins from Chilliwack, Kent Specialty Automotive, Malibu. And JR not quite with the run he wanted in qualifying, really any of the qualifying sessions, and trying to make a big improvement here. And a rarity for him coming in is the lower qualified car coming in at the number 10 spot. Hawkins, your number 5 qualifier, heading into eliminations, the higher qualified car. So Hawkins, purging the nitrous system, electing to go down the TCS side of the racetrack, is Lazic trying to make something happen in the TCS side of the racetrack. And Lordco lane, that is Mike Hawkins. So good look there up in the big screen at the radial flyer, the Nova, where the turbo outlet is. On that machine, smack down in the middle of the hood for J.R. Lazic, who has won Doorwarz before in this car. Up against Mike Hawkins again. Car that used to run an open comp here at Mission Raceway Park, back at the Canadian Pro Street Association. And here we will go. One last purge of the nitrous for Mike Hawkins. Lazic already has that top bulb lit and waiting to go in. And they are still waiting. And they are still waiting. A little mini staging duel between Hawkins and Lazic down there in the starting line. Who's gonna go in? Hawkins gets directed to go in. Lazic building up the boost after sitting for a while, using up all that 7 seconds. Oh, Lazic, big reaction time advantage. And it is gonna be J.R. Lazic, 466 at 158 miles an hour, beating out Mike Hawkins, 470 with the 5 at 154, 117 light for J.R. Lazic and a 446 light for Mike Hawkins for the racer out of Chilliwack. So Lazic with that big starting line advantage holds it out, runs the better elapsed time as well with that 466 with a 4 for J.R. Lazic. So little bit of a burn down there in round number 1, but Lazic getting the job done. He's going to move on into round number 2 of Outlaw 275, and we've got Jason Gagnon up against Rick McLeod. And if you've seen Rick in competition before, you know that this isn't Rick's regular car. Rick, unfortunately, having some problems in the dart. Dusting off the backup, the Chevy Malibu, to try and get some points. The other feature car in the Doorwarz t-shirt. And that's Rick's dart, not the Malibu wagon. So Rick will do what we saw Tyler Stanler do in the first round of competition up against Chris Gould. Just bring that machine up to the beams and try and break the beams, and in the odd chance that his opponent red lights or crosses the center line, he'd be awarded the win to move on in competition. So Rick McLeod's hoping that something weird happens over there with the Nova of Jason Gagnon, that twin turbocharged machine coming into this round of eliminations is your third quick qualifier over the number 12 spot for McLeod. Well, there's no problems for Gagnon as McLeod shuts it off in a 519, 137 miles an hour. Clicking her off early for Jason. For the racer out of Kelowna, the Gen 3 Speed Power Sports Precision Concept Chevy Nova with twin turbochargers, and that car, again, capable of much more than that. Jason saving the equipment there with a relatively easy pass into round number 2 of competition. So it looks to be a competition single for Dan Rodriguez. Todd Souza not showing up in his Fox Body Mustang for this first round pairing. So Rodriguez getting the competition single into round number 2 for the Boo, the 1981 Chevy Malibu, the winner of Smoke, Fire, and Thunder last year at Mission Raceway Park, and also your defending Outlaw 275 track champ, or rather West Coast Outlaws champion. Of course, the track champion by virtue of having the 2 races here at Mission Raceway Park. Purging the nitrous system as the big block Chevy for Dan Rodriguez, getting ready to bring it into the beams, and looks like this is the last car to go down the racetrack for round number 1 of eliminations here in Outlaw 275 for MDA Fabrication. So Dan Rodriguez trying to finish off the round in style and see what the Boo can do with really no danger of not moving on to round number 2 of eliminations. Big wheels up moment, getting her sideways and managed to gather it back up. That thing was all over the racetrack in the Lordco Auto Parts lane for Dan Rodriguez, who wisely decides to shut it off and coast to a 511 with a 6. Take a look at this in the instant replay. Oh, big hang time. And the car gets down, makes a wicked little move right before the traps, and Dan shuts it off. So Jason Gagnon, tower side of the racetrack, TCS lane, the 1970 Nova out of Kelowna, up against Parm Jawanda over in the Lordco Auto Parts lane out of Surrey in the Night Shift 91 Fox Body Mustang. So Jason Gagnon in round number 2 of eliminations here for Outlaw 275 as he gets backed up from the burnout. The Gen 3 Speed JS Power Sports Precision Concept Chevy Nova, and Rodriguez getting the competition single as Todd Souza unfortunately not making the call, rather see that Jason Gagnon in that Nova. Reading the long ladder there. Gagnon taking out Rick McLeod and almost, what was almost a competition single, as Parm Jawanda going up against him as we get ready to go. Good drag race, and it's going to be Jason Gagnon at the stripe with a 450 with a 6. 450 with a 6, 169 miles an hour for Jason Gagnon. Parm Jawanda, 472 with a 7, 162 miles an hour. Solid run for Parm Jawanda there, but coming up just a little bit short of Jason Gagnon. There is a margin of victory at the stripe, about a car length and a half for Jason Gagnon as we get ready for the next pairing, and it is Jordan Brandon, the 2000 Chevy Camaro, the turbocharged LS power plant, up against Tyler Bodke in the Fox Body Mustang. So Bodke in round number 1 of competition, taking out former Doorwarz winner Steve Skokin. And Jordan Brandon getting the bye into round number 2 of competition. So Bodke backing up the Mustang out of Rochester, Washington, and Jordan Brandon from Sherwood Park, Alberta, in the Camaro. So we'll see if Tyler Bodke can play giant killer here over Jordan Brandon. Brandon in the 40s, Bodke high 50s in the Mustang, and the last run as we get ready to go in round number 2. Brandon versus Bodke to go into the semis. And it is Jordan Brandon, a 440 with 7 low ET of the weekend, 172 miles an hour, top speed of the weekend for Jordan Brandon. Tyler Bodke runs it through, runs his best pass of the weekend as well, a 450 with a 3, 163 miles an hour, but again, just coming up a little bit short for Jordan Brandon getting the win with a 440 with a 7. Attention in the pits, attention in the pits. Canada West Door Slammers, Canada West Door Slammers, we need you guys to the staging lanes. Is Chris Gould getting a bye run in round number 2 at Ford Mustang. So Chris Gould, a 442nd player, has been having solid run after run pretty much each and every time he brings this Mustang out to hit the racetrack. It's been a very consistent race car until there, fortunately, on a bye. So a quick pedal there from Chris Gould, 571 with a 130 miles an hour from Spruce Grove, Alberta, and good chance to test and see what the track will take there once you don't have a car in the other lane. So Gould, no harm, no foul. We'll move on in to the semifinals. And he will face Jason Gagnon in that semifinal matchup. And it looks like we have got one final pair in Outlaw 275. So, into the water box comes J.R. Lazick in the Nova up against Dan Rodrigue in the Chevy Malibu. The 81 Malibu he calls the Boot. And Lazick stepping up the performance big time in round number 1 to take out Mike Hawkins. Winner of this matchup taking on Jordan Brandon in the semifinals to see who gets into the final round for Doorwarz. Rodrigue, your defending West Coast Outlaws champion, and again looking for his first win since Smoke, Fire, and Thunder last year in the Radial Flyer. JR back behind the wheel. Running in 2 classes this weekend, also in Pro Modified competition. Tension in the pits, tension in the pits. West Coast Pro Modified, you guys are on a 30-minute standby call. West Coast Pro Modified, 30-minute standby call. Make that a 20-minute standby call. West Coast Pro Modified's 20-minute standby call. Getting close up at Dan Rodrigue in the cockpit of the Malibu, as he gets ready to bring that Sinister Black machine up into the staging beams. And J.R. Lazick, who was testing out another car in the Gen 3 Speed Fleet earlier this week before climbing aboard Radial Flyer and taking back the controls, drove this car to a Doorwarz win formally. Had a little bit of a burn down there with Mike Hawkins. Lasted for about 30 seconds or so, 40 seconds before either of them decided to stage, as Hawkins was directed to put the Malibu into the beams before Lazick. So, the last pair of round number 2 in Outlaw 275 getting ready to head down the titanium strip. Will it be Rodrigue or Lazic going into the semis? Side by side, Lazic creeped through, tripped off the top bulb, and it's Dan Rodrigue getting the job done. 451 with a 9 at 159 miles an hour, 463 with an 8 for J.R. Lazic, and unfortunately going home in round number 2 as Dan Rodrigue gets to the finish line by half a car length at the Rocket Coatings finishing finish line cam, showing you the replay. So it is Jordan Brandon and Dan Rodrigue. Rodrigue, who, if I'm not mistaken, made it to the semifinals last year, Doorwarz. And Jordan Brandon, again, the winner. One of the feature cars on the t-shirts you can get down at the Pro Shop, which they might have closed up shop for today. But again, you can head on down, grab your merchandise tomorrow here at Mission Raceway Park is Jordan Brandon, the turbocharged LS Camaro, up against Dan Rodrigue, the big block Chevy. A whole lot of nitrous. So we are good to go for the first semi-final matchup in Outlaw 275 for MDA Fabrication. Dan Rodrigue trying to get into the final round of Doorwarz up against Jordan Brandon. So your number 1 qualifier in Jordan Brandon and ran a 440 earlier on today in that car getting backed up. And Dan Rodrigue has been a solid 450 player all weekend. Dan, whose last run, he had a bye run into this one and got a little bit sideways, needless to say, on that pass as we'll purge the nitrous system in the boo. The Kent Specialty Automotive Milron Truck Bodies, McRae Metalworks machine, and Jordan Brandon, racer from Alberta, and the Camaro that he calls Million getting brought into the beams. Again, a relatively new build for Brandon in that Camaro that really only had its first season of competition last year, where he took out the big prize as Brandon has got that top bulb turned on. Here comes Dan Rodrigue. We're going to see who goes to the finals. Rodrigue is going to have to pedal it, and it is Jordan Brandon, a 440 again. 440 with a 4, 171 miles an hour for Jordan Brandon as he goes to the finals for the second straight year here at Mission Raceway Park. Dan Rodrigue having to pedal it, still runs in the 4s, a 492 with a 657 miles an hour, and Dan, knowing that he had to step up the program, tried to take a swing at it, unfortunately comes up just a little bit short in the boo, coming up in the semifinals as the final pair in the semifinals. Chris Gould, the Matt Gray 2000 Ford Mustang for CT Automotive out of Spruce Grove, Alberta, against Jason Gagnon in the Gen 3 Speed JS Power Sports Precision Concept 1970 Chevy Nova. Gagnon with the twin turbos on that machine is the number 3 qualifier up against the number 2 qualifier. So, Chris Gould, getting a look at the back of Chris's 2000 Mustang. The Vetno's in the back as he gets ready to bring it into the beams, and Jason Gagnon, the racer out of Kelowna, trying to join Jordan Brandon in the final round. Who's going to be the Nova or the Mustang? It is going to be a close drag race at the stripe. Jason Gagnon on a hole shot. 0.57 to an 0.71 reaction time. Margin of victory at the stripe, 7 thousandths of a second. So Jason Gagnon with the advantage on the starting line for the Nova. A 444 or 445 rather with a 5 takes out a 444 with a 9, and again 7 thousandths of a second, the margin of victory at the finish line for Jason Gagnon, who is going on to the final round to take on Justin Brandon. Well, you can hear cars firing up, and there they emerge from underneath the Lordco Auto Parts Bridge and getting ready for the finals in Outlaw 275 for MDA Fabrication here at Doorwarz. It is Jordan Brandon, your defending Doorwarz winner, up against Jason Gagnon over there in the Lordco Auto Parts side of the racetrack. The 1970 Chevy Nova for Gen 3 Speed, JS Power Sports, Precision Concept, Twin Turbos, up against Jordan Brandon in that LS powered turbocharged Camaro. So, Jason Gagnon backing up from the burnout, and Jordan Brandon again unleashing a slew of 440s on the field throughout eliminations and in qualifying, coming out with a 441 as the number one qualifier, then running a 440 in the semifinals to get into this one. Gagnon coming into the finals off of a hole shot win in the Nova. So again, for Jordan, he's trying to go back-to-back. Jason trying to get the job done over there in the Nova. And it's the final two rounds here with Outlaw 275 and Limited Street coming up to finish off Saturday here at Doorwarz, Mission Raceway Park, and it's going to be exciting final round to decide who is going to be your Doorwarz champion for Outlaw 275 and MDA Fabrication for 2023. Brandon is already pre-stage, waiting on Gagnon to bump it in. You'll hear the boost build on both sides of the racetrack. Here we go. Side by side to the stripe, and it is back-to-back Doorwarz wins for Jordan Brandon out of Sherwood Park, Alberta, getting the job done. Another 440, 442 with a 1 at 172 miles an hour. But how about the big speed from Jason Gagnon over there and the Lordco Auto Parts side of the racetrack? Had 175.92 miles an hour with a 447 with a 4, but comes up just short on Jordan Brandon, who marched through the field and gets the job done once again. So back-to-back Doorwarz wins for Jordan Brandon in that 2000 Chevy Camaro. And here's a look at it again in the instant replay. We'll get a look at the finish line cam, and it was just that close at the stripe.